Part 125. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1245. Although the scale of 3 meters is not in Garen's eyes, it is different here. This is a high-dimensional universe. It is restricted to abnormal rules. Any member of the White Dragon clan can have a huge body of more than 3 meters tall. So how powerful will higher levels of existence be? You must know that the stronger the rules, the more energy it will take to maintain the extremely rigorous internal structure of the body if you want to develop such a large body. Children. I am your mother Gogorella. It's time to come out and receive the baptism of God. The elephant-like white dragon fell down on the ice, walked a few steps forward with heavy steps, and leaned down. Big waves of cold air spurted out from below. However, the cold air blowing on Garen and other young dragons was not cold, but warm. As soon as they saw this white dragon, all the young dragons, including Garen, naturally showed admiration from deep in their hearts. Gogorilla Garen remembered this name. If nothing else happened, this white dragon would become his protector and relative for many years to come. Recently, several alien souls have fallen into our area. Accepting the baptism of the dragon god can identify the identities of these alien creatures. Pastor Pasola has requested the coming of the divine voice, so all of you dragons must be baptized. Although I don't think anyone can break through our clan's warning barrier and invade silently. But the process still needs to be done. Gogorilla, the white dragon's mother, explained in a low voice. Alien soul, Garen was slightly startled. He is a typical alien soul. The soul ring and body have not yet been completely integrated. The soul ring is his true soul as a demon king. It can be seen from the contents of the inherited memory. Once the problem is discovered by the gods here, then the gods here can destroy and create planes at will, and are extremely powerful beings. You must know that some planes are much larger than planets, even the size of a galaxy. He already knew that the things that he encountered when traveling through this time and space that were attracting and wanting to devour him were probably the powerful gods and kingdoms in the outer realm. That kind of power is so huge that even those with natural abilities can only forcefully rush out and escape. He compared the power of his soul ring. The power of a god was almost comparable to that of a tributary of the Mother River. Even a tributary of the Mother River was far beyond what ordinary true spirits could compare to. This world is too dangerous, his heart suddenly became full of vigilance. In the inherited memory, the mages and arcane masters of this high-dimensional world often summoned strange and powerful creatures from different time and space universes through different dimensions, so as to enslave or kill them as materials. This kind of horrific behavior is no different from the sorcerers in their heyday, and it's even more tyrannical. In other words, the world he came to now was probably the most glorious civilization comparable to the ancient warlocks, and this civilization might even be more powerful than the warlocks. Garen became increasingly wary. He didn't know if he would be discovered during the baptism of divine magic, but once he was discovered, with his current strength, even if he returned to the Demon King level, he wouldn't think so in the face of so many mages and gods in this world who are eyeing the souls of other worlds. He can escape. This place is different from other places, and the research on the soul here is far from comparable to other worlds. Now we're in trouble. Garen's heart sank as he watched the white dragon's huge vertical pupils staring at the young dragons. We must find a way, this thought quickly started to spin in Garen's mind. He didn't know what kind of divine baptism it was, but once the gods discovered the problem, the consequences were beyond his ability to bear. This is not the world I have experienced before. This is a place that can truly threaten my soul. Garen's heart began to work at full strength, and various coping methods passed through his mind one by one. The soul rings violently collided, and the friction came out. A large number of colorless sparks burst out mixed with the soul power. But without understanding the specific nature of the magic, he couldn't deal with it. "Let's go, children," White Dragon Fruit Gorilla said in a low voice. She took the 3 earth dragons among the young dragons and held them in her mouth. The other young dragons flapped and vibrated their fleshy wings and flew up unsteadily. No matter how degenerated a dragon is, as long as it is not an earth dragon, it can still fly. Galleons are no exception. He also flapped his wings unsteadily and flew up. A group of small baby dragons followed the white dragon and flew out of the cave. Call. A gust of cold wind blew against my face and body. Garen blinked slightly and looked outside. The outside world was vast. Countless gray and white ice fields spread to the horizon before your eyes. Clouds accumulated in the gray sky, and below were white dragons flapping their huge wings, flying around the snow-capped mountains where he was. Garen flew some distance away with Gogorilla, and almost all the young dragons were mesmerized by this magnificent scenery. He was the only one who looked back at the nest he flew out of. The sharp white snow peak is already some distance away. Surrounding the sharp sword-like peak are at least dozens of white dragons flying densely. These adult white dragons range from big to small, but the shortest one is 6 meters long and 3 meters high. The stronger ones are 7 or 8 meters long. The roar of the white dragon is very strange. It is long and long, as if it does not need to take a breath, and it can roar for 20 or 30 seconds in one breath. Strong and powerful. Garen no longer had soul power to sense and detect, so he could only rely on visual observation to observe these huge beasts. A question suddenly occurred to him. There is an insurmountable gap between the high-dimensional universe and the low-dimensional universe, just like the gap between characters in comics and characters in reality is completely incomparable. But the red light of his natural ability can directly bring him from a low dimension to a high dimension. With such an ability, he couldn't imagine any existence that could do this. This is no longer just about controlling the rules of time and space, but it is about directly promoting the essence of a life to a level that transcends the entire low-dimensional world. This method is much more terrifying than letting an ordinary person directly become a god. But after some simulation in Garen's mind, he came up with an even more absurd guess. Based on the formation of the Mother River and the origin of the black hole, he simulated a possibility. Could it be that I am a creature from a high-dimensional universe, and the red light only takes me into a lower dimension to experience time travel, so the creatures there cannot kill me, and I can continue to be reincarnated without any damage after death, and now I enter a high-dimensional universe naturally loses this ability. The more Garen thought about it, the more he realized that this guess was very likely. If I am a creature of the high-dimensional universe, then this can explain why I have not met anyone in the same world at the lighthouse. At the same time, many unexplainable things can also be fulfilled. And the red light obviously only brings me it's just crossing the barrier, it has no other effect. I rely entirely on my own adaptation to the rules of this universe. We're here. Get ready to land. The voice of White Dragon Guoquarilla brought him back to reality. A group of white dragons have flown to a huge circular white flat land. This is the top of a mountain peak, but it seems that someone used a knife to cut out such a huge platform from the top of the mountain peak. There is a sharp black metal needle standing in the middle of the circular platform, which looks like a corona timer. More than 10 white dragons had already descended to the platform with their children. Gogorilla, Garen, and other young dragons followed suit and found a place to squat. After that, many white dragons flapped their wings and landed one after another. Stand or squat quietly and land on the disc. Garen's mind became more and more certain of his guess about his origin. But the crisis at hand does not matter whether he is a high-dimensional creature or not, because no matter what his origin is, he still has only one identity in this world, an alien soul. As more and more white dragons landed, Gokwarilla placed the bitten earth dragon child on the disc and waited quietly. Don't move around or get too close to other white dragons, they will kill you, she warned. Garen then remembered that even if the white dragon clan lived together in groups for the pressure of survival, they could not hide their cruel and selfish nature. After all, they were evil-colored dragons, and they were extremely vigilant against everything. Mew. By this time, almost all the white dragons had arrived, and there were more than 20 adult heads and hundreds of young dragons densely packed on the disc. All adult dragons have their necks drooped, leaning on the ground. Let out a gentle dragon roar. A huge white dragon over 10 meters in size slowly descended, landed on the edge of the long needle in the center of the disc, and stood silently in the center. It held a white staff in one of its paws that was higher than his head, and placed it gently on the ground, standing on its two hind legs like a human. May the great Tiamat bless us. This white dragon was obviously not too young. He raised his white staff, and a white light mist lit up on the top of the staff. There was a faint whistling sound of wind and snow inside. It seems like countless white snowflakes are spinning in the light mist. A text-like symbol appeared above the light mist, suspended in a slowly glowing white fluorescence. From a distance, the symbol looked like a flying dragon with 5 heads. Just outline it with extremely simple lines. Thump. A shimmering ripple like a heartbeat spread from the symbol, instantly filling the entire white disk area. Garen's heart suddenly rose to his throat. He felt a strong coercion instantly fall from the sky above his head, as if there was some extremely terrifying and huge creature watching here. Like a giant looking at ants on the ground. But he could clearly feel that there was no energy passing through their bodies. Old Bailong's actions just now were just calling for God's attention. It's dangerous. Garen's heart went crazy. He seemed to have an illusion, as if all the secrets deep in his heart were being peered into by that great being. This feeling made him very uncomfortable, as if he had been stripped naked in public, stood naked on the stage, and had countless spotlights focused on his little brother. Although this metaphor is absurd, it is extremely appropriate to show what Garen is feeling right now. No. No. Roar. At this moment, a huge sound vibrated, and a guy who was obviously a baby dragon flew up, fluttering its wings and shooting towards the distance. There was a strong fluctuation of soul power on his body. Garen was shocked. That level of soul power fluctuation was a void creature. They actually came to this world too? How can it be? Although he couldn't penetrate the body with his soul power, he could feel the void creature level inside the parasitized young dragon. At least it's a 3-spirit ring. He quickly located the strength level of the escaping void creature. He had an intuition that it was very likely that this guy followed the hole he knocked into and entered the universe. Suddenly, the old white dragon staff in the center moved, and a white beam shot out from the symbol, accurately hitting the fleeing void creature. Hiss. With a subtle sound like flames burning meat, the parasitic white dragon of the void creature was instantly bound by the white light, tied like a rope, and was thrown directly in mid-air. With a sneer, it was pierced into the sharp metal needle in the center of the disc, creating an incomparable skewer. Roar. No. How could I die here? The void creature roared loudly in void language, but to no avail. The metal needle penetrated his chest, and blood continued to flow down the needle. At the same time, the extremely majestic gaze above his head also showed satisfaction. Garen was horrified as he listened to the void creature's roaring and struggling, getting weaker and weaker. The soul rings on the void creatures exploded one by one, but all the huge power generated was suppressed by the gaze above him, like it is as light and effortless as a human holding a feather. 3 soul rings. If he could use it, he would be a terrifying existence not much different from him. Even in the ancient Yinduo civilization, he would be considered a middle-level demon king. A tyrannical existence that can rule several planets and civilizations is actually here, being skewered like a hunted prey. The next family, a huge voice sounded in dragon language. Only then did Garen realize that it was obvious that the void creature was discovered just now and was found to be abnormal by one-on-one testing. He walked around and looked out from the gap on the side of Gogorilla's body. He saw a white stone door with a round arch standing on the other corner of the disc. A white dragon was leading a young dragon through the stone door. Obviously it is a tool for detecting souls from other worlds. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1246. If that thing can detect void creatures, it will probably detect me. What should I do? Garen's heart began to feel numb. As a demon king based on soul rings, a void creature with 3 soul rings is vulnerable to that power, so naturally he can't either. Even if you resist, it is just equivalent to considering how strong titanium alloy is with cheese and eggs. It has no meaning at all. The white dragon family on the disc began to pass through the white gate one by one with their young dragons. Garen and other dragons lined up at the back, but they also watched the queue in front getting smaller and smaller. Gradually the disc rotated, and the white door was getting closer and closer to him. Pass. An adult white dragon guarding the white gate said calmly, glancing at the 7 or 8 white dragon families behind. Speed up, he urged impatiently. A family of white dragons followed and walked towards the white gate. Whoosh! Suddenly, a shadow flew out from the family and fled into the distance. Even a soul practitioner like Garen could clearly feel the burst of soul power. This is also a void creature with 3 soul rings. He instantly exploded his 3 soul rings at the same time, erupting with extremely terrifying power. This also made his speed instantly surpass that of an adult white dragon, reaching a speed that is beyond the reach of all living creatures. The point. Stupid, the old dragon holding the staff just raised his eyes, motionless, and just watched the young dragon escape. Laugh. The symbol on the top of his staff emitted white light again, binding the flying void creature exactly like last time, pulling it back instantly, and with a sneer, it was also inserted into the black needle on the disc. Under the eyes of the great Tiamat, all disguises and lurking will be exposed, the old dragon said loudly in dragon language that was almost like singing. The white dragons lowered their heads devoutly to show respect. Although it is impossible for selfish dragons like them to truly believe in Tiamat, at least showing superficial respect is just a piece of cake for any white dragon. After all, the only one who is really willing to maintain them now is Tiamat. The team moved on. Garen watched the white door getting closer and closer, his heart rising in his throat. What to do? His mind was running at an unprecedented speed, trying to find a way to deal with the situation at hand. One by one, Baelong families walked into the white stone door, then came out from the other side, waiting quietly at the other end of the disc. It's your turn, hurry up, the white dragon guarding the gate glanced coldly at Gogorilla. Yes, respected dragon guard, Gogorilla answered respectfully. She was the first to walk into the white door, and then stepped out from the other end. The young dragons behind her jumped in one by one. Garen gritted his teeth and jumped in. Laugh. A white beam of light suddenly brightened. With a rumble, the entire disc vibrated slightly. Garen only felt a white light in front of his eyes. It's over, his mind went cold. The soul rings all over his body were beating like crazy. His dignity as a demon king and a strong man did not allow him to be killed without any resistance. I want to run, he suddenly heard the roar of the old dragon, and his eyes suddenly dimmed. The white light passed far away in front of him, more than 10 meters in front, and landed on a young white dragon that was secretly jumping off the disc. With a sneer, white flames ignited, and the entire young dragon roared crazily. In just a blink of an eye, it was burned to white ash, blown by the wind, mixed with the wind and snow, and disappeared. Garen was covered in cold sweat. He was standing in the middle of the white stone door. What are you doing here? Get out, the dragon guard guarding the gate gave him a tail, whipping Garen forward and almost rolling him out. He is not angry but happy. He's actually fine? It really works, Garen breathed a sigh of relief. He glanced at the soul ring deep in his soul. But in the end, he will completely become a native creature of this universe. In order to escape the crisis just now, he simply completely combined the soul ring with this physical body. This combination is equivalent to the Demon King completely giving up the ability to reincarnate and rebirth, and firmly fixing himself in a biological body. When the creature dies and the Demon King dies, the Demon Kings no longer have the right to travel around the world at will. This method is not used by all Demon Kings, but is a unique confinement rule that Garen learned from the original Shadow Dragon. Use this kind of imprisonment to in turn imprison yourself and merge into this body. This also made him confused. The rules of Shadow Dragon actually work, so can other high-end comprehension rules also work? Garen passed the crisis, glanced at the dragon guard who slapped his tail, silently crawled to Gogorilla's side, and began to try to imitate other things he had understood. But unfortunately, there are many other things in body simulation training, but except for the secret martial arts of a few disciples, the rest need to be modified because of different rules. But this means that everything I learned can be used and has meaning. It just needs some modifications. After the crisis in Garen's heart passed, he became clearer and clearer. Then it is very possible that this is a high-dimensional universe, so it can accommodate all the rules of the low-dimensional universe, but because the rules here may be more comprehensive, more numerous and higher, things in the low-dimensional universe may be incomplete. In this way, it means that the knowledge I have accumulated is not useless, I just need to improve it according to the rules here. Garen felt relieved. He originally guessed that the gap between the high-dimensional and low-dimensional universes might be 1 dimension, but now it seems that it may not be that high, maybe only half of 1 dimension. The gods of this world represent the highest power. They may be able to use higher dimensions to enslave alien creatures, but they cannot adjust the time and space of other worlds at will. It seems that there are gods in the inherited memory who can travel through time and space in other worlds. Such a connection is a bit like higher space-time, but stronger than the higher universe. Garen relaxed and began to think and analyze randomly. Anyway, he was almost caught and skewered as a heretic. He didn't want to have such an experience again. It would be better if he died in a frontal battle on the battlefield, but what he was afraid of was that he would die without the ability to resist, and it would still be unknown. White. Okay, all family testing has been completed. You can go back. Old Long-Standing in the middle ordered. Then the white dragons breathed a sigh of relief, flapped their wings and flew back towards the nest with their little ones. Gogorilla did the same. She bit the 3 little earth dragons again, followed by Garen and other 5 young dragons. But instead of flying back to the original nest, she flew away from the snow peak and towards another piece of white in the distance. The mountains flew away. "Mother, where are we going?" a young dragon asked with a milky voice. It was the baby dragon that was the boldest and the strongest when he was born. This guy wanted to fight as soon as he was born and had an active personality. "Go to our original home. This is Elder Peak, not our own home," Gogorilla replied gently. She held 3 small earth dragons in her mouth, and because her teeth were clenched, her speech was a bit unclear. "What about our father?" asked the other baby dragon. "I don't know. We Bailong have too many fathers. I didn't find out who my father was at the beginning. Ravido broke up with me only last year. Maybe you should call him Father." Guoquarilla hesitated. Garen rolled his eyes. The marriage relationship between white dragons is not an ordinary mixed one. Because fertility is too low, a female white dragon may mate with more than 10 male dragons at the same time until she becomes pregnant. Therefore, these white dragons generally do not know who their father is. "Can I nurse?" a young dragon asked loudly. "Go back and eat," Guoquarilla roared. "Flying now." She flies very slowly because she has to take care of her baby dragons. But soon she let out a groan, and a young dragon, regardless of her consent, pounced on her belly and took a bite out of her vagina. Bailong actually needs to feed. Garen felt like he had refreshed his worldview again. A group of young dragons immediately began to fight for the ownership of the chickens. There were only 3 chickens and they had to take turns to eat. Garen rolled his eyes on the side and asked him to fight for sex with a bunch of brats, So let's forget it. Although the baby dragon can drink its mother's milk in the inherited memory, the young dragon can also choose to eat meat directly. The continuous white snow peaks are slowly moving and passing below. No other birds dare to intrude here. This is the territory of the dragon. The power of the dragon is enough to scare any creature below the 4th level into shit, even if the will is slightly weaker. Yes, he will be frightened to the point of degradation and downgrade. Therefore, even a huge number of social creatures do not dare to invade the dragon's residence. After the crisis passed, Garen began to consider using his talents to quickly improve his abilities. The world was too dangerous. He just used the rules of confinement to integrate himself into this body, but his soul is too powerful than his body. If such an anomaly encounters a master of the soul at close range, not to mention gods, it is some necromancers of the human race, involving souls, a high-level mage who studies may find something is wrong with him or her. The old dragon clearly relied entirely on the staff in his hand to release his magic. The reason why the gods did not notice his abnormality was probably because it was just a rough alarm device. Garen suspected that the scanning was probably an intimidation mechanism. It looked like the will of the gods was watching here, but in reality the gods had so much leisure. The baptism of a small white dragon clan would personally watch it. Tiama, although Te is not loved by many good dragons, he is still respected by many dragon clans and has a wide range of followers. The White Dragon clan has countless branches in the main plane and countless planes, and it is impossible to attract the attention of the gods. The incompatibility of the soul being far more powerful than the body must be resolved as soon as possible. After all, this place is a time bomb with obvious hidden dangers. It may be discovered at any time. Garen's heart quickly raised. This place is not like other places. Here there are too many masters who are good at studying the soul. Too much. There are even soul gods. Once discovered, as an alien soul, he may face a situation worse than death, and even being broken down into experimental materials is considered light. Moreover, white dragons have to receive a baptism from God when they reach adulthood, and they may still face such troubles at that time. What if the gods really glance over at me occasionally? This time it was luck, but next time it may not be the case. Garen quickly made up his mind. In the inherited memory, the custom of the White Dragon clan is to receive Tiamat's new life baptism when they are 10 years old. This kind of adult baptism is likely to involve the soul, and the chance of being discovered will be much greater then. If this incoordination problem is not solved, it will be discovered sooner or later. This problem must be solved within 10 years. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1247. The lair is located on a snowy peak far, far away from Elder Peak. The snow peak is not high, at most only half of the Elder Peak. It is mostly surrounded by large green woods. Occasionally, you can see some big yellow trees. There are large groups of earth dragons wandering nearby. Some of these earth dragons are descended from white dragons. Some are deformed, and some are hybrids of earth dragons and other creatures, with more or less dragon blood. Gogorilla took Garen and other young dragons to live here. She threw the three-headed earth dragon off the top of the mountain and left it to fend for itself. The remaining 5 little guys were taken into the dragon's lair by her and settled down surrounded by countless ice. The dragon's lair is like a honeycomb, with many huge cavities, each of which is large enough for a young dragon to live quietly inside, which is equivalent to a single room. The life in the dragon's lair is dull and boring. Every 10 days, Gokwarila will hunt back a prey from outside. Sometimes it is a giant creature that is enough for everyone to eat for several days, and sometimes it is many small animals. Sometimes there are even some earth dragon beasts with distant blood relations. There is no fire. The way to eat beilong is to freeze the meat with cold air, and then chew it like eating biscuits. It is crunchy and a little fishy, but very fresh. Except for the first few days of sucking milk, the young dragons have been eating this stuff. Galen soon fell in love with this way of eating. He lives in a small cavity on the left side. What he has to do every day is to eat and sleep. After sleeping, he gets up to move his body, and then continues to eat. The other young dragons were different from him, each rolling and fighting together. Not a romp, but a real brawl. The white dragon's mother, Gogorilla, ignored the fights between the young dragons, because in her opinion, they were practicing how to hunt prey. The inherited memory has made it very clear. As for Garen, the only one who didn't participate in the fight, they thought he was unsociable, and no dragons were willing to come into contact with him. Time passed like this day by day, and Garen continued to look for things and treasures that could improve his physical fitness. The physical quality of the white dragon in this world is too strong. As a young dragon, his physical fitness improved by an average of 10 points in less than 2 months. In terms of strength, agility, and physique, the average has steadily increased, from just over a point to an average of over 10 points, which is simply terrifying. This is because Garen has never used his soul power to nourish his body because he found a better way to use it. Bang! Sae, you lose. You must give me today's meat. In the dragon's lair, the two young dragons panted and let go of each other. There were scars and bruises all over their bodies, obviously the result of the beating just now. Two young dragons were watching the battle, and the white dragon Guokorilla went out to hunt again. When the young dragons were still growing, they needed a lot of meat. She had to hunt continuously to meet the needs of the 5 young dragons. Okay, I'll let you go today. If it weren't for my bad condition, Sae is the biggest young dragon, but unexpectedly, he can't beat Saer in a fight. As for Sa-san Sa4, and Garen who was named Sao. Except for Garen who had never fought him, the others could not beat him. You're in bad shape again. How many times have you been in bad shape? Haha Saer laughed, staring at Sa-san Sasi standing on the other side with his blue eyes, and the little guys on both sides were frightened. Shrink back. Saer smiled with satisfaction, obviously very satisfied with his intimidation effect. He has initially established leadership among his brothers and sisters. After the baptism of the newborn, we will live alone. Our mother will no longer take care of us. Then we will have to hunt alone. I propose that we 5 brothers and sisters should live together until we reach adulthood. He said loudly, when we are weak, we must live in groups. This is the knowledge engraved in our blood. I agree. Sa-san was the first to agree. He was already frightened by Saer. It was okay that everyone's physical fitness was about the same, but Saer's muscles were too strong and his explosive power was too strong. One-on-one, even it was as big as a head and was overturned. This only adds to their fear of Satan. I think we should conquer those earth dragon beasts, Sae suggested. We can't defeat them. Saer shook his head. I secretly tried it the day before yesterday, and the weakest little earth dragon is stronger than me. They were just young dragons now, and the largest Sae was no more than a large wolf dog, and it was impossible to defeat those powerful earth dragons. But Gogorilla didn't care about anything except giving them food. The emotions in Beilong's family were very indifferent. After a little time, they would drive out all the others except themselves. As a competitor, white dragons are all selfish, and Gogorilla is especially outstanding in this regard. Now she is even more exhausted by the heavy burden of raising 5 young dragons. The senses for these guys who only get something for nothing are getting worse and worse. Such situations are not rare. The fertility of white dragons is not weak. They can give birth to another child every 10 years, which is a considerable number. Therefore, many young dragons are likely to be driven out of the dragon's lair to survive alone. Because there may be such danger, Sa Long also began to carefully consider his future life. But they are just 2 months old. No matter how much knowledge they inherit, their minds are still immature. The 4 little dragons gathered together and began to chatter about their future arrangements. Garin squatted at the door of his small cave, looking down at his brothers and sisters from above. He has been observing these young dragons for many days, and the average physical fitness is estimated to be around 10 points. Sae is the strongest, reaching 12 points, while Saer is the fastest, reaching 13 points. That's about it. The dragons in this world are still very powerful. They are still in their ordinary infancy, and they are already more than 10 times as powerful as ordinary humans. However, Galen still uses the basic human standard unit data from other previous worlds. It's unclear what the human qualities of this world are. He lay down at the door of the hollow, opened his mouth and yawned. He looked at his physical condition at the moment. Sao strength 13, agility 13, constitution 11, intelligence 17, potential 0%, soul limit 170. Sawu was a name randomly chosen by Gogorella. The White Dragon clan had become increasingly decadent and declining. If it weren't for the threat of survival, it is estimated that even an organizational system like the clan would not have emerged. It doesn't matter to Garin. Anyway, his purpose in coming to this world is not other than to investigate the root cause of the Mother River's failure. At the same time, if he can find a better way to change his cultivation, he will decisively change his cultivation. And this world is obviously new and full of vitality for him. Although dangerous, there are also benefits. This is the result of my 2 months of training. Garin shook his head speechlessly. It's just a little stronger than them. It seems that human training methods are not very effective for dragons. He has been training according to the method of practicing secret martial arts for the past 2 months, but perhaps because of the incomplete rules, the effect of the training is not great. It is only slightly stronger than the traditional training methods of these young dragons. But it's better than nothing. Let's look at the talent. Garin focused his attention on the soul power he had accumulated now. 4 soul rings, to be precise, 3 complete soul rings and 1 half soul ring, produced 2 months of soul power, all of which he accumulated. Not all of them are used directly on your body. Because he discovered that after coming to this world, his natural abilities seemed to have changed slightly, and he could now absorb his own soul power to strengthen his body. When did this phenomenon begin? Garin recalled. It seemed to have happened after he completely fused his soul ring with his body. Now that I can absorb soul power, let's take a look at the conversion efficiency of my soul power into potential points. While Garin was lying on his stomach and watching the 4 little dragons discussing things below, he slowly began to mobilize all his accumulated soul power and moved towards the location of his innate abilities. The location of the innate ability is at his eyes, or the position of his eyes that he feels. A large amount of soul power quickly poured into his eyes. Garin stared at his potential without blinking. Aha! Sure enough, the potential points immediately began to rise rapidly, 20p/U00110/U00150%. The numbers jump quickly. The soul power consumption is also very large. After 10 minutes, all the accumulated soul power entered the superpower position and was converted into potential points. 521%. Not bad. Garin looked at his data. 5 attribute points can be used. It's only been 2 months, which is pretty good. Although the stronger the physical body, the more difficult it will be to improve in the future, but at least you can get through the weak childhood stage quickly. Garin glanced at the young dragon below and added the 5 attributes evenly to strength and speed without hesitation. Gogorilla has become increasingly impatient with raising them. They may be driven out of the dragon's lair at any time to live independently. They may not survive the baptism of rebirth and will be eaten by other dangerous creatures. Priority must be given to ensuring one's ability to survive at this moment. Hunting is the only way to ensure its own development and growth. After adding it, Garen looked at the attributes. Sao Strength 16, Agility 15, Constitution 11, Intelligence 17, Potential 21%, Soul Limit 170. Garen waved his claws and made a sharp whistling sound. The rules of this world are extremely abnormal. This kind of physical fitness is not generally strong in other worlds, but it is suppressed to a ridiculous degree here. Even the air knife can't hit it. Garen helplessly continued to lie down, waiting for Gogo to bring back food. The sky gradually got darker, and soon it was night. It's dark. The dragon's cave was empty, with only a few scattered pieces of gemstone equipment collected by Long slowly glowing faintly. Garen had heard Guo Quarrela's introduction that the luminous equipment was solidified with the level 0 magic light spell. The magic spell was a type of spell. He was very curious and wanted to understand this power system, but obviously Long there is little attention to this aspect. Dragons are naturally immune to all spells below level 4, so except for level 5 archmages, other low-level mages cannot even break through their defenses. So it's not worth paying attention to at all. Even the current dragon scales of the young dragons are immune to first-level spells. Why hasn't Mother come back yet? Lo Sa asked at first. Usually she would have been back by this time. Perhaps he was tripped up by something, Saer guessed. There are no creatures around that can threaten my mother. Sasi is not very talkative, but he seems to have good intellectual analysis skills. Wait, maybe we'll come back later, Sae suggested. Several young dragons could only continue to wait. The family relationships of the white dragons in inherited memories give them a serious sense of insecurity. Time passed quickly, and several young dragons took a nap and soon woke up again. I found that it was already dawn. But the female dragon still didn't come back. Mother hasn't come back yet. Saer was a little depressed. Maybe there was too much food hunted this time, and she might be thinking of ways to bring it back, Sa-san whispered. That's right, it was like this last time. Sae regained his confidence. Saer, let's play wrestling. Saer readily agreed, and the two young dragons began to fight happily again. Sasi, who was relatively intelligent, was a little worried. He stood aside and looked outside the cave from time to time, hoping to see his mother's huge figure. Garen was still lying at the entrance of his cave. He had already discovered that something was wrong. Gogorilla had probably abandoned them. This is not uncommon among the chromatic dragons. White dragons are the weakest among the chromatic dragons, but their fertility is the strongest. Coupled with their extremely selfish nature, many mothers of white dragons abandon their children at the dragon egg stage. Although it is rare for them to be abandoned after they have hatched, it is not uncommon. Call. He sighed. From the gradually decreasing amount of treasure in the dragon's lair every day, he vaguely realized that Guo Quarrela had obviously long ago planned to gradually transfer the treasures in the dragon's lair. Now she might really be planning to give up on them completely. Head young dragon. Compared to the outside drakes and other dangerous beasts, as well as humans, young dragons are fragile and dangerous. Especially humans, once discovered by them, it is considered good to be captured and made into contract beasts, and more will be killed and broken down into various materials to make magic items. Because except for special groups, humans rarely domesticate colored dragons, especially the most selfish white dragons. But fortunately, this place is not far from the White Dragon clan. They are still under the protection of the White Dragon clan. The danger should not be very great, and they can survive hunting by themselves. Wait a little longer, Sae's voice came from below. Garen stood up and returned to his hollow to rest. In the blink of an eye, 2 more days passed, and Gogorilla still didn't come back. Now even Sa-san, who believed in his mother the most, was shaken. We were abandoned. Sasi had almost confirmed this guess. The other 3 little dragons were silent. Mysterious journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1248. Garen had just finished exercising in his own cavity and was lying down to rest. He himself temporarily improved a set of ordinary fighting and fighting skills that can be used to train young dragons at this stage. There is no name. It is just a simple exercise of fighting skills for different bodies. At his level, even if his body is different, his physical combat ability is still the strongest at the same stage. He was confident that even if the 4 young dragons outside came together, he could easily kill these little guys one by one without using his abnormal physical fitness. Although there are related simple fighting skills in their inherited memories. But knowledge is knowledge, and it must be transformed into instinct by hard training. As soon as he sat down, he saw Sae and 4 other young dragons squeezing into his hole. Sae-wu, we are going out to hunt, are you going? Saer had obviously confirmed his leadership position and stood at the front and said loudly. Hunting, Garen stood up, what are you planning to hunt? I don't know, but I have to go out and look for something to eat, Saer replied, with a trace of confusion in his eyes. To be honest, he didn't know what to hunt. None of the creatures their mother hunted was something they could handle. If we don't go out, we will starve to death here. Sasi seemed much more rational, so no matter what, we have no choice but to go out. Of course Garen understands this. While Gakyo Reala's dragon power is still there and there are no 2 ferocious earth dragon beasts or powerful creatures around that dare to invade here, they are still safe and must leave here as soon as possible. Just where to go and how to go, these must be carefully considered. It's just that they don't dare to live in mountain caves like this. Such places are often attracted by ferocious birds, and they can't keep them at all. After thinking for a while, Garen agreed to go out together. A group of young dragons flapped their wings and quickly flew out of the dragon's lair. They knew that it was impossible to come back here. At Garen's prompt, the 5 young dragons flew into the clouds, using the clouds to cover their bodies. This area is the territory of the white dragon, and it is unlikely that you will encounter other ferocious birds, so it is relatively safe. It doesn't matter where Garen goes. Anyway, as long as time goes by, he can use his soul power to continuously transform attribute points and strengthen his body. The efficiency of soul power conversion is good, there is no loss, and unlike before, the soul power was evenly distributed throughout the body, but after it is converted into attribute points, Garen can control which attributes he prefers. As for the leadership of several young dragons, he was too lazy to care about it and didn't take it seriously yet. The large green forest below was looming in the clouds, and a group of young dragons unconsciously flew in a colder direction. Garen remembered that it was the direction of the elder peak of the White Dragon clan. Roar! Suddenly, a dragon roar came from below. A white shadow suddenly shot into the sky, knocking several young dragons apart violently. Get out of my territory! This was an adult white dragon. He rose into the sky from the snowy peaks below and roared while hovering in front of the 5 scattered young dragons. The 5 young dragons, including Garen, were all knocked dizzy by the violent airflow. Garen calmed down, and while steadying his body, he judged and estimated the value of this adult white dragon. At least the strength and speed are above 30 points. Below 40 points, he quickly came up with a more accurate data. Too strong. Garen looked at his own values. The strongest one was only 17 points in intelligence. The airflow alone caused him to lose control of his balance. With their eyelids twitching, Garen and the 4 young dragons had no choice but to rush back, not daring to stop. The adult white dragon roared loudly behind them before flying back to their snowy peaks. Garen could clearly feel the murderous glances coming from behind him. He knew that if he encountered an adult white dragon in the wild, they would both become each other's slaves or food. If it weren't for the fact that white dragons like to kill each other, with their fertility, they would have dominated the chromatic dragon clan long ago. It was impossible to go back along the original route. What should we do now? Sae asked. We are going to hunt, Saer replied firmly. But what to hunt for? Sasi asked the same question. What can we hunt? We are too weak. Sa-san was helpless and a little discouraged. No, we can go to the forest and maybe find some food, Garen said. He didn't want to follow these kids around anymore. The appearance of the adult white dragon made him clearly realize that the world is as dangerous as anywhere else, if not more so. Forest, Saer looked at Garen. Sa-wu, have you been to the forest? There are elves and giant bears there. We will not be opponents. Not all forests can easily encounter giant bears and elves. Garen was speechless. The dragon clan's inherited memory only injects many dangerous attempts into the mind, but there are not so many specific details. When they mentioned the forest, they only alerted the dragons to the dangerous creatures inside. Therefore, the young dragons will never know that there are weak creatures in the forest. I found that Sarah seems to be more independent than us. Sarah seemed to have noticed the difference in Galen. So what? I'm the boss, Saer waved his paw. Okay, you are the boss. But we are going to the forest now. Garen nodded perfunctorily. Yes, we are going to the forest, Saer repeated. This was the only choice. When all the dragons ran out of ideas, they could only choose this path. Flying in another unfamiliar direction, the surrounding temperature is getting warmer and warmer. Some large hawk-like birds gradually began to appear below. We have to go down. There will be many powerful birds here that we can't deal with, Garen suggested. He had just observed a giant eagle with a wingspan of more than 10 meters. Its strength and speed were estimated to be over 20, which was very terrifying. Okay, let's go down, Saer immediately agreed. A group of young dragons quickly descended and found a gap in the continuous dark green mountain forest below to fall down. Several deer that were drinking water jumped away and ran away. Food, when he saw the deer, Saer roared and rushed out. However, he tripped over a nearby branch and fell to the ground. The other young dragons suddenly burst into laughter. Garen walked aside alone and observed the woods. He immediately saw a few footprints on the edge of the creek. The footprints have not yet dissipated and recovered, and it can be faintly seen that they are human footprints. Humans. He was wary. He himself was a human. After knowing from the inherited memory how precious materials like dragon skin are to humans, he knew that if he met a group of humans now, they would definitely be in their eyes. Once the mobile treasure house is exposed and spread, it will definitely attract more other humans. It's troublesome. There are actually people moving here. It's so close to the White Dragon clan. Thoughts came to Garen's mind. Ouch. A leopard that was drinking water by the creek raised its head and roared at the young dragon. He was obviously dissatisfied with the fact that several young dragons were disturbing his drinking water. We are a great dragon clan. He was so angry that a mere little leopard dared to challenge its dignity. It flapped its wings, flew out quickly, and blew out a breath of cold air towards the leopard. With a gasp, the white cold air was easily dodged by the leopard, but Sae's movements were faster than his. The dragon's innate qualities were beyond what this ordinary leopard could resist. After a few moments, Sae pounced on her and held her head down, unable to struggle on the ground. It's too simple, haha, Sae laughed. It was stronger than the adult leopard and suppressed it firmly. How should I eat it? Freeze it to death first. Several young dragons pounced on it. If they hadn't been young and lacked the power of the dragons, they would have avoided the leopard and would have escaped long ago. With the first prey, there was a second, and soon a wild boar appeared in their field of vision. This wild boar is covered in thick yellow rock armor. It is as tall as a person and looks very majestic. Several young dragons couldn't deal with its power head-on. After being knocked down by several big trees one after another, the young dragons worked together to fly the wild boar around and stun it. They were unable to stand upright. Then Saer accelerated and struck hard. The claws smashed the boar's head open. There was food again, and several young dragons began to share the food, and they got the big head by splitting the food. But except for Garen, who was always vigilant, no one of them noticed that in the woods not far behind them, a group of humans wearing light leather armor were quietly approaching their location. It's a baby dragon. An old man in a close-fitting robe squatted down and inspected the remaining remains of the leopard. This leopard was a level 3 lightning leopard. It was already very fast, but it was still killed. He paused, judging from the speed, strength, and claw marks, it should be a young dragon. The white dragon clan is nearby. An adult white dragon will not kill its prey on the spot. And there are more than one young dragon, which is also a good material for writing. Then, Your Excellency, should we go find the dragon lair first, or kill these young dragons first? A man in green armor behind him whispered with a two-handed sword behind his back. Our first task is to hunt down an adult white dragon. We will mention the rest later. However, it is rare to encounter a young dragon that is so far away from the group. The old mage pondered. Let's do this, Kale. Here. Your Excellency. Sarah. A thin old man in black robe walked out of the team. He holds a cypress staff topped with a skull. It looks eerie. Take 2 silvers and kill this nest of young dragons. You take 60% of the materials, the old mage ordered. As you wish, Your Excellency. The sinister old man laughed. Be careful of the appearance of adult white dragons. The young dragons are only level 4. Just be careful of the ice spitting. They are actually more powerful level 4 beasts, the old mage warned. I am already a 5th level mage, Your Excellency. The sinister old man said confidently. Then go ahead. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1249. We have to get out of here. Garen stood up and said to the young dragons who were drinking water. He didn't want to leave alone. He was still too weak now and needed to act with these young dragons, not only for strength, but also as a cover for his identity. Once an anomaly is discovered alone, problems are likely to arise. Being discovered. Why do you want to leave here? Sarah asked. There are humans here, Garen whispered. How can they move here? It's obviously because of their purpose. Humans. We can kill them directly. They are just food. Sae disagreed. We may be able to kill them in the future, but not now. Garen shook his head. Are you leaving? Don't leave. There is a water source here. There will definitely be animals coming to the river. As long as we stay here, we can find food. Sasi was a little clever. As long as there is endless food, we can continue to advance, Sa-san said loudly. As long as we advance, we can go find our mother, Sae continued. As long as we find our mother, we will be safer, Saer waved his paw. Bang! A huge claw clenched into a fist and hit him in the eye socket. Saer suddenly took a few steps back crookedly. Before he could figure out what was going on, he saw Garen hitting him hard with his claws again. No. You bang. Both eye sockets were completely black. He was so angry that he dared to hit the boss. He pounced forward, trying to get into a close fight with Garen, but to no avail. Galen just stepped back and hit the net with his kick. A standard knee strike hit Sae's abdomen hard. Oh! Sae and Saer were smashed and sat on the ground. My head felt dizzy and I was knocked unconscious. I'm the boss now. Garen walked up to the 2 dragons and waved his claws. Okay, you are the boss. Sae was convinced. Saer's eyes were still a little unconvinced, but Garen's movements and speed and power just now were clearly not something he could resist, so he could only snort and reluctantly surrender. Now, let's get out of here. Garen confirmed his leadership position and decisively proposed to prepare to leave. The other 2 young dragons, Sa-san Sasi, were frightened by Garen's sudden burst of power. A group of young dragons sorted out the ice cubes of leopard meat that they had just killed, took them one by one, tied them up with the unique big leaf vines in the forest, and then flew unsteadily, flying towards the distance. Roar! Suddenly, a low roar burst out from the woods below. A dark thing rushed out of the woods. It seemed to be a black wild boar, a huge wild boar. The wild boar was covered in black iron-colored armor, its eyes were glowing red, and its whole body exuded a stench that towered into the sky. He rushed straight towards a group of young dragons. "Ascend," Garen shouted. This wild boar was at least twice as big as them, and it hit him hard like a car. He didn't want to have a head-on confrontation with this guy. All the young dragons immediately increased their height, but immediately a grey beam of light suddenly shot out from behind the wild boar, hitting Sae's hind legs accurately. "Oh!" Sae screamed in pain. This ray can actually break through the magic defense of dragon skin. Even if they are just young dragons now, their skin can only be immune to first-level magic, but it also has a certain resistance to second-level magic. But looking at Sae now, it is obvious that this ray is far more than just a second-level spell. Sae struggled for a few times, then lost the ability to flap his wings and fell from the sky. The other baby dragons were shocked. At this time, the white dragon's selfish nature really showed itself. All the baby dragons ignored Sae, who fell down and flew away in panic. Garen glanced at Sae below. The huge wild boar was raising its head and waiting for it to fall. A sinister old man in grey robes walked out from beside the wild boar. Human Garen's heart moved slightly. His power and speed were not comparable to Sae's. Moreover, Sae's body only stiffened for a short time before he fell. Before he completely touched the ground, he had already flapped his wings again and fiercely blew out a breath of cold air towards the old man. When the white cold air rushed in front of the old man, it seemed to be blocked by a transparent barrier. The old man smiled sinisterly, stretched out his right hand, and the shadow of a white skeleton hand appeared on the entire right palm, wrapping his palm in it. From a distance, it seemed as if his own hand was a skeleton. The skeleton hand went straight through the barrier and grabbed Sae, who was trying to escape. Garen in the sky suddenly felt a strong threat and dark aura from the skeletal hand. A cold feeling like standing in front of the cliff of the abyss surged up from my heart. His hair stood on end all of a sudden, and his soul ring reacted instinctively. This old man is very strong. It's not something he can deal with now. Without hesitation, Garen turned around and flew away, catching up with Sae-san, who was running away in front of him, and quickly moved away from here. As for Sae, it's probably more bad luck than bad. The old man hesitated for a moment below and glanced at the white young dragons that fled away. It's a pity that there are more than one. There are so many good materials. He held Sae in his hand, and the sharp and curved nails on his fingertips pierced deeply into the young dragon's skin. Sae screamed, wailing loudly and painfully. White blood flowed from the wound and dripped onto the ground, covering a small piece of grass with white frost. After being caught by the old mage, it had no room to resist. Garen flew with a few baby dragons, and everyone quickly gathered together again, but Sae disappeared. A group of dragons returned along the original path in the air, all silent. "Will Sae die?" Saer asked in a low voice. No creature can remain calm when facing death for the first time. The outside world is too dangerous. Sasi lowered his head and said, his body trembling a little. It was also the first time that Garen felt that this world was not an ordinary danger. He had detected divine spells before, and now he met the sinister old man who seemed to be extremely powerful. In addition to some human fighting skills that he knew, he now had other power systems. Most of them require completing the rules before they can be used, but completing the rules takes too much time, and now he can't even guarantee his own safety. "There are two ways now," Garen said in a low voice. "Which two ways?" Saer asked quickly. He found that Jialong was the most independent and knowledgeable among them. The other 3 and 4 others also quickly looked at him. There are humans around now. Obviously they are not just here to hang out. Looking at the strength of that person just now, it is impossible for him to just come to deal with us young dragons. If we want to be safe, first, we must leave here far away. Looking for you in District 20, Elder Feng of the White Dragon Clan, tell them what we have discovered. The clan has a special baby dragon breeding center where we can go in and learn to fight. Garen carefully stated his plan. I plan to go to the clan to enter the training center, what about you? The other young dragons were just headless flies. They died in front of them. Now they were so frightened that they had no idea. They simply listened to Garen and flew in the direction of the clan. Arriving safely at the White Dragon Clan, Garen and his party told the White Dragon guards about the situation and obtained entry permission. The White Dragons had obviously known for a long time that humans were approaching, and they did not refuse the young dragons to enter and hide. Not only Garen and other dragons, but also other surrounding white dragons took their young dragons to hide near the clan elder peak. Because his mother, Guo Quarrela, had disappeared, Garance's second-class dragons were uniformly placed in a breeding center. It's as he wished. The White Dragon Tribe's Baby Dragon Breeding Center is an institution specially set up for baby dragons who have lost their parents and families who are too lazy to take care of their baby dragons. There are more than 50 adult white dragons in the whole clan, and 5 of them are dedicated to taking care of these baby dragons. There are also other people around. There are a large number of dragon beasts and earth dragons managed by the white dragons. As a warning, it teaches young dragons how to fight, how to hunt, what creatures and dangers they should pay attention to that threaten dragon scales, etc., as well as the environment and conditions they need before promotion, as well as the storage of messy food. In addition, what Garen is more interested in is that the practice of magic is also taught here. When entering the class selection process, he chose the offensive class without any hesitation, instead of the actual combat class that most white dragons chose. For a white dragon, as long as it reaches adulthood, it will have dragon scales that are immune to all spells below level 4, a powerful dragon power that is equivalent to a lossless level 3 magic field, and a large group of earth dragons and dragons that can be controlled. The dragon beast also has the ice-based talent spell level 6 Ice Mirror several times a day, as well as 2 types of ice breath. Any mage facing an adult white dragon, with its strong physique and terrifying power, can be exempted from and reduce many negative spells of level 4 or above. If he is not careful and is swept by a tail, he will be at least equivalent to the top level 6 creature. Degree of strength. Without a powerful enough spell barrier and mage armor, this instant burst would be equivalent to the power of a level 5 lethal spell. Such a terrifying talent makes it rare for White Dragon or even the Dragon Clan to focus on learning spells. Only those old dragons whose lives are too long will choose to practice magic. Because it's so boring. Are you sure you want to choose the book delivery class? Don't blame me for not reminding you. The most suitable route for us dragons is to improve our physical combat ability first, and then choose spells after ensuring our own safety, because only then will we have enough time to practice and accumulate. Long, the young man from the book distribution class in charge of registration reminded, and we will not be responsible for your food. You have to learn to hunt stronger prey on your own during the learning process. In this process, basic spells have no effect on dragons. Garen nodded to show that he understood. I know. No, you don't know. The young dragon shook his head, his slender snake neck like a beautiful white swan. Obviously this is a female dragon. Although we are dragons and have innate huge spiritual power, this does not mean that we can advance quickly. Just like humans, our advancement also takes decades to reach the 4th level. This is because you have the talent. The level. If you don't have talent, it will take at least 60 or 70 years. And the 4th level spell's damage to us adult dragons is very weak. Very, very weak, she emphasized again. I understand. Garen naturally knew this. So I also signed up for the combat class. The young dragon was stunned and looked at Garen carefully. Okay, now that you have made your decision, he wrote Galleon's name on the paper with a few strokes, not Sao, but Galleon. After leaving Gaquilella, he changed his original name back to himself. We will conduct summons every once in a while to enter different environments for actual combat training. If you die, don't blame me for not reminding you, the young dragon said in a low voice. Garen smiled. Excuse me, what's your name? This was the first time he saw such a kind-hearted guy in the White Dragon clan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1250. Hola, my name is Ayala. There are not many dragons in the magic class, only a dozen young dragons. The class time is not fixed, but there will be exams at a fixed time. The time will be notified every month, just within the clan on a stone wall in the Elder Peak. Aura explained, because we want to impart knowledge and skills to you, we will receive compensation. In this world, knowledge and skills are not imparted in vain, so you need to work for the clan. What is the job content? Garen naturally understood. Such a selfish White Dragon clan will definitely not give them benefits for free. It's a battle, Aura replied succinctly, with humans and other creatures, in order to expand our living space. If there is no problem, then put a claw on it. He put the paper in front of Garen. Garen carefully read the contents of the contract written in dragon language. Then he pressed it with a snap. From now on, he will be tied to the clan for the rest of his career until he reaches adulthood. There is nothing that can be done about it. Although the baby dragon is stronger than ordinary animals, its ability to attract hatred is far superior to other ordinary creatures. Without the protection of the clan, even now he cannot go out of the surrounding 10 kilometers. It is said that the group of humans simply settled down near the clan. Apparently he was planning to fight with the clan. After leaving Aura, Garen flew out of the registration office and went to the combat class to register again. Then he returned to the temporary gathering point, where the 3 dragons from Saer and others were already waiting here. They just register for one class, which is obviously much faster than Galleon's. The guide is the instructor dragon. There is a question day every 3 days. We can ask anything about fighting, but we can only ask for half a day. Then we will assess it once a month. Sasi asked carefully and clearly. I heard that the humans who killed Sae outside stayed there and refused to leave. It was too dangerous. They are not afraid of the clan, Saer said loudly. A group of young dragons were talking loudly in a crevice between rocks on the snowy peak. From time to time, adult white dragons can be seen flying past outside the gaps between the snowy peaks, as well as more baby dragons. They are just an inconspicuous part of it. We must work hard, Sasi said, don't worry about humans. I've asked. Among 100 baby dragons, there will be no more than 5 that can reach adulthood safely. There were various battles and being killed along the way. They are not strong enough. If we are not careful enough, we will never reach adulthood. Without our mother, we have no protector. What he said was the truth. Now Jialong and the others belong to a weak group without relatives to protect them. Once they encounter danger, Elder Peak will not protect them at all unless they have been near Elder Peak. But this is impossible. If you want to in exchange for knowledge, they must complete a task, and to complete the task, they must go out and leave. This is an endless cycle. Garen knew even more. He even inquired about the specific conditions of the humans stationed outside. It was a nearby powerful mage group called the Dalata Empire. Their leader was a 7th-level mage named Gushan. This time, there has been a conflict with a white dragon family. Almost killed an adult white dragon. And it seems that they haven't used their full strength yet. But even so, the White Dragon clan did not dare to start a war rashly, because behind the ancient mountains is the huge Dalata Empire. This human empire is said to have many 7th level mages, at least dozens, and even higher level Yongs. Only top mages who have reached level 8 or above can be called eternal radiators. Only the ancient dragons of the Dragon clan can deal with such existence. The strength span is very large compared to that of a 7th level mage. Therefore, even if an adult white dragon is almost killed, the clan can only endure it. The selfish nature of the white dragons is unwilling to fight for interests other than their own. What's more, the foundation of the Dalata Empire is simply not something they can fight against. There are no ancient dragons in their clan. The only ones they have are a few old dragon priests. However, the evil dragon god Tiamat will never appear in confrontations with humans because she was once injured by the human god of war. Over the wings. Time flies, spring passes soon, and hot summer comes. Garen also officially started to learn knowledge and skills from the two classes. The content of the combat class is very simple and consumes almost no energy from him. It is mainly the offensive class, on which he puts all his energy. Just as stupid as him, there are more than a dozen young dragons who are very obsessed with magic. They are sitting together in a valley somewhere in the Snow Peak Mountains. Garen was sitting on the right edge, quietly listening to the explanation of the young dragon above. To his expectation, Sasi also chose the Austrian class with him. However, Sasi was not as energetic as him and gave up the combat class. Sitting behind him on a stool made of ice, he listened intently to the explanation above. The wind and snow were howling outside, but it couldn't affect the young dragon's huge voice at all. Level 0 spells are also called Level 0 tricks. In addition to being used for performances, they are also used to test the spiritual qualifications of the mage. Other uses are very small, but this is the basis of all spells, so it is also a threshold that must be crossed, young dragon said loudly. There are a total of 56 orthodox level 0 tricks, but here we only need to be able to use 10, which means we have completely mastered the introductory energy manipulation of each faction. This will serve as a basis for choosing a faction in the future. The young dragon stretched out his claws, and a small ball of white light suddenly lit up above his claws. This is the light technique. He waved his hand, but the light ball remained motionless and was held in the center of his palm. I used the condensed snowball as a luminous body and cast a light spell on it, so it became like this. The young dragons below have all seen many collections of light magic collected by their relatives, so naturally they will not be surprised by such a small movement, and they are all calm. The young dragon also quickly began to explain how to adjust his mental power and release a simple light technique. Garen listened carefully. I quickly understood the principle of the spell. The spells here actually use the most basic spiritual power to draw the subtle energy in the universe, dividing it into different categories and factions, thereby forming various complex and simple derivative changes, and naturally forming a spell system of different levels and categories. This is equivalent to a series of chain reactions of chemical reactions. If mages want a specified chemical reaction, they need to put in the specified materials in the specified order. The same is true for spells. A spell is finally formed. This is the result of the reaction. To form and produce this result, it is necessary to use mental power to continuously adjust and guide, so that different energies can collide, merge, and react with each other, and ultimately produce extremely complex changes to achieve the final magic effect. The various energies in the air are the different materials required for chemical reactions. How to take and put materials in, control the weight, and even how to stir and guide them are all matters that the mental power has to do. So when releasing a spell, we need to focus. This is a continuous process. Once it is interrupted and the reaction time is missed, it will be difficult to continue. Young dragon explained the principle of the spell. Then what is spiritual power? A young dragon stood up and asked loudly. Spiritual power is your attention. The young dragon smiled, grinning, and showing his white fangs. Just like you are listening to my lecture with all your concentration, your mental power is now concentrated on me. All my senses are paying attention to me, and once I release an enhanced version of the light spell at this moment. Laugh. Suddenly, a dazzling ball of light burst out from the young dragon's hand. Oh! Suddenly there was a cry of exclamation. This enhanced version of the light spell obviously took into account the endurance of the young dragons. A group of young dragons were immediately blinded by the light and screamed in surprise. Garen dodged in time to avoid the sneak attack. Okay, let's take a break. Everyone can move freely. We will continue after 1/3 of the hourglass. The young dragon took out a golden hourglass and placed it on the snow. The fine black sand inside began to slowly leak from top to bottom. Garen and the other young dragons all rubbed their eyes. They had been badly dodged just now. Sitting alone on the stool, Garen was bored and began to recall what he had learned about the situation here these days. The clan and the Dalata Empire seemed to have some kind of agreement, so that the adult dragons above were no longer attacked. At the same time, the people from the Dalata Empire did not even attack the young dragons, but began to build something deep in the forest. I heard from Aura that the Dalata Empire seemed to be at war on the border. 2 other empires were invaded by the Dalata Empire at the same time. This time, it is estimated that an agreement may be reached with the senior leader of Elder Peak, Old Dragon. The White Dragon clan will help Dalata participate in the war to gain asylum from the Empire. Thinking of this, he glanced at the young dragons around him. He didn't know how well these young dragons could survive the war. The baby dragons of the White Dragon tribe are never valuable, because the White Dragons are so fertile when they reach adulthood. But if a young dragon wants to grow into an adult dragon, it takes too long and costs too much. It's really troublesome. It's too difficult to reach the point of being in harmony with the soul within 10 years. We have to find a way. Maybe we can only think of a way from the mysterious arcane laws of this world. Garen frowned unconsciously. Garen Sasi behind him patted Garen's back wings. What's up? Saer has brought us food, Sasi whispered. Garen suddenly understood. Due to lack of time during this period, he spent most of the time just listening to lectures at both ends, and had no time to go out to hunt. At this time, Saer, who already admired Garen a little, took the initiative to share the meat he hunted with Garen. The same goes for Sarah. Both young dragons felt that Garen had his own opinion on everything. Even when they met the powerful mage, he was extremely calm. Directly to his senses it was different. Garen and Sarah got up and went to the entrance of the valley. They saw Sarah putting meat frozen into ice cubes on the ground. He glanced at the 2 gallant dragons from a distance, turned around and flew out quickly. The 2 of them went over to get the food and ate quickly. Isaac has the glory of galleons. Garen is now the leader of this small group of young dragons. During this time, he has gained the admiration of these young dragons both physically and mentally. Although Baelong is selfish, he is also obedient to the strong. It is his nature to prey on the weak. Eat quickly. Garen chewed the raw meat. But my mind began to think of other things. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1251. It has been a while since he came to this clan, but except for the nourishment of soul power, he has never found a way to further speed up the improvement of his attribute points, so he can only accumulate them in the stupidest way. After quickly finishing the piece of meat, Garen continued to go back to class. The content of the arcane class was not much, and most of it was things that the young dragons needed to practice more by themselves. So it was quickly disbanded. After Garen said goodbye to Sasi, he went directly to the combat class. It happened that the 2 classes were separated, one in the morning and the other in the afternoon. The warrior class is much more lively than the Alpha class. Although it is only one of more than 10 warrior classes, there are more than 20 young dragons in it. Also in a cold and windy ice valley, there is a huge millstone-like arena in the middle. The arena is called a battlefield. There are many stools around which you can sit and rest, as well as several dragon lairs. I know what it is used for. There are many light blue ice bamboo shoots growing at the door. These ice bamboo shoots faintly emit blue light and are used by the white dragon as decoration. For humans, this kind of ice bamboo shoots are affected by the dragon's aura for a long time. Has a certain effect of nourishing body strength. Very valuable. Garen flew low-key into the ice valley with a few baby dragons. He looked around and saw that the teacher hadn't arrived yet, but a lot of baby dragons had already arrived, and some were swooping and playing in mid-air in the corner. Some were sitting alone with their heads down and nibbling, while others were gathering together in groups and chattering. "Hey Garen," a young dragon with pale blue scales flew over and said hello. "Leona? Is something wrong?" Garen responded coldly. "Can't I come play with you if I have nothing to do?" Leona, the young dragon, said unhappy. "Come and see the snow dragon I made." She pointed proudly at a snow dragon made of snow on the ground not far away, but Garen looked more like a carrot. "So ugly," he commented casually. "What does it mean to be ugly?" Leona was dissatisfied. "Ugly is ugly, I never argue with a dragon," Garen replied casually and walked directly towards his position. Beside his seat, 3 young dragons were gathering together, pushing and shouting at a thin and short young dragon. Garen ignored it and sat down by himself. The stools, tables, and chairs here were all made from human models. They were simple in style, but practical and sturdy. It was not the first time that Garen had seen these young dragons bullying other dragons, but as long as he was not offended, he was too lazy to talk nonsense with these little brats. The young dragons saw that his muscles were strong and his scales were very shiny, so they didn't dare to mess with him casually. So everything was fine all the time. Seeing him sit down, Leona also flew over and sat down in front of him. They are partners assigned to a group in the combat class. Because during the combat class test, Garen was obviously among the best in terms of physical fitness, so Leona was assigned to train and study with him, which is what I meant above. Na is actually the daughter of a clan elder, so she deserves some preferential treatment. So even though Garen really didn't want to pay attention to this little brat, he still had to deal with it and didn't dare to really turn his back on her. "Garen, do you know that Sister Aura and Uncle Cartel may be mating?" Leona came over and whispered to Garen. Garen glanced at the sky speechlessly. "What do you want to say?" The little female dragon obviously doesn't know what shame is. These things only exist for humans, but for the white dragon tribe who encourage fertility, this kind of thing doesn't matter. "I'm going to watch the battle secretly, will you go?" she said secretly. "I won't go," Garen flatly refused. "I still have a lot of things to do, I still have to work, and I still have to study in the Aura class." "Aren't you curious?" Leona whispered. Not at all. Garen began to urge Leona to look back. The young dragon teacher in front began to teach. The instructors here are only part-time. These young dragons are all strong players who have experienced actual combat. The record of killing level 7 creatures. The explanation began, and there was not much theoretical explanation. Many of the white dragon's fighting skills are integrated in the inherited memory. The young dragons only need to master them, use them more, and practice more combat, and they will become familiar with them naturally. Because of their naturally powerful bodies, the dragon's strength and speed as adults are equivalent to the level of a 7th level human knight. This level is called silver, and silver knights are said to have a high prestige among the human race, and are generally capable of undertaking defense tasks as large as an earldom. Therefore, because of their already strong physical foundation, what the young dragons need to learn is mainly how to use it, while the most important thing for the white dragons is to practice something called dragon power. The dragon's power itself is the coercion naturally exuded by the dragon clan, which will naturally increase with the growth of adulthood. However, in order to obtain a more powerful evolution, the dragon clan invented a method to exercise the dragon's power. Just like humans who exercise their physical bodies and skills can obtain the life energy of knights. The teaching started soon. During this period, all the basic courses were taught. They were the same as those in the offensive class, just laying the foundation. But the one who entered the ring today was an old white dragon whose body was covered with silver armor. Its wings are a little slack, but the dragon's eyes can still convey a strong sense of intimidation, which is more tyrannical than ordinary adult dragons. After waiting for the young dragons below to completely quiet down and sit down, he spoke. I am Bisman. I am familiar with you these days. You must all know me. Today is different from before. I will officially teach you Longway's training skills, and the specific work content and date will also be officially told to you. What exactly are your obligations? His powerful dragon voice continued to echo in the ice valley. Longway's skills, Garen's heart was filled with excitement, and he was finally about to officially come into contact with the power system here. The arcane class has been teaching the basic knowledge of arcane spells, as well as the functions and effects of many various spells, but has never been exposed to specific practice methods. On the contrary, the warrior class here is one step ahead. Not just him, the other young dragons became excited. Only Leona looked bored, obviously she knew this. I've learned it a long time ago. Garen glanced at her and thought to himself, no wonder this guy was so strong during basic sparring. He had added attribute points to his strength, but he was still not as powerful as this little female dragon. There was a buzz of chatter from the young dragons all around. Roar! Bisman roared violently on the stage, and the huge dragon roar spread into a shock wave. The young dragons below were shaken by the river, and some of them even fell to the ground. They were so frightened that they became weak and unable to get up. The most irritated creature is making noise in front of me. Bisman Leg Hasarash Davitsi, the instructor waved his wings angrily and roared loudly. Circles of terrifying coercion emanated from his body. It was a feeling similar to strong atmospheric pressure, which was so suppressed that all the young dragons were speechless. Even Garen felt a little uneasy breathing, and his heart was slightly shaken. It is indeed a brand new energy system. He was not surprised but delighted. However, he faintly noticed that Leona in front of him also exuded a hint of pressure, which offset a large part of the pressure from the dragon above. Among the rest of the young dragons, a small number of them are the same as Leona, with faint dragon power to resist and offset, but they are just different in strength and weakness. Garen himself only used brute force to stabilize his body and prevent himself from being crushed to the snow. The scene fell silent. Instructor Long continued to explain. The practice of dragon power is actually very simple. It is to feel, grasp, and finally control the dragon power that we naturally emit. This will form a weapon that can be freely retracted and used. Instructor Long's heavy body paced back and forth on the stage, and the sound of banging footsteps kept coming. This weapon will accompany you forever. Even after you die, your bones will naturally carry such dragon power that no low-level biological chain can do it. This is the innate nobility of our dragon clan. Mentor Long roared excitedly, raised his head like a snake and roared fiercely. The purpose of Longway is not just as a weapon, it can also be taken into the body as a tool to train our own bodies, making us stronger and tougher. It makes our scales stronger and our claws sharper. Next, I will introduce in detail how to discover Longway. Baseman began to explain in detail the existence form of something like Longway. The Dragon Clan is a really powerful race. This was Galen's first impression after listening to the lecture. Dragon power is actually a kind of tyrannical force field naturally generated by dragons. Dragons will produce an external influence field similar to mental pressure at all times. This is derived from the beating of the dragon's heart. The dragon's heart is extremely powerful. Its beating rhythm contains the movements of countless myocardial muscles. There are many extremely small biological electrical stimulations inside these myocardial movements. They condense together to form a powerful heart. Electricity, thereby commanding the myoelectricity of all other parts of the body. This power is naturally emitted, causing chain derivative effects in the surrounding nature. This is the basic principle of the so-called long way. Of course, there are more complex sources, but the most important leading force among them is actually the heart electricity of dragon heart. The dragon has no brain, only dragon crystal. The dragon crystal is in the brain and the dragon heart is in the body. This is the basis for maintaining all physiological activities of the dragon. And dragon heart needs to maintain such a huge body, and the naturally generated heart electricity is very powerful. The combat class not only has to learn the basics of dragon power, but also the anatomy of the dragon clan, how to kill a giant dragon quickly, and how to kill a powerful human quickly, because humans are the main opponents of the White Dragon clan. Although these anatomy are relatively rough, they are also refined down to the muscle fiber stage. Garen studied carefully and quickly understood these contents without even using his powerful soul ring, relying only on the developed intelligence of this body. He has an intelligence of 17 points right away. This level of development comes from his powerful soul and also from most of the nutrients he snatched while inside the eggshell. Longway's discovery was relatively simple, and his mentor Bisman gave a relatively simple method. Separate the snowflakes falling from the sky naturally to avoid falling on yourself. To do this, you only need to imagine according to the prescribed steps, and then when your mind produces ripples like ripples, gather your energy and imagine that there is a vacuum above your head, with nothing in it. To put it bluntly, it's just imagination and attention. It just requires a special process to activate the discovery, because the dragon clan itself possesses dragon power. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1252. Garen tried it, but it had no effect at first, but his soul was too strong. After just a few attempts, he could faintly feel that the snowflakes above his head were slightly curved. This change is very subtle, and if Garen hadn't observed it carefully, he might not have been able to detect it. It is impossible for his current dragon power to reach the point of affecting external objects. This is the effect that he only produces after he gathers all the dragon power into a bundle. Okay, let's start informing you of your work tasks. After explaining the basics, Bisman began to speak again. If you want to get it, you have to pay. Your mission is to go to the Ice Forest Valley in the south to hunt the Ice Monitor Lizard. The heart and eyeballs of the Ice Monitor Lizard are good things we use to breed black-toothed wolves. It can greatly increase their strength. Fertility. Black-toothed wolves are a food race raised by the Baelong clan, similar to how humans raise pigs. The level of Ice Monitor Lizards is generally between level 3 and level 5, which is most suitable for your training. Of course, if you encounter an Elder Monitor Lizard, run away quickly. We regard them as food, and they also regard us as enemies. Each of the giant lizard elders is a level 6 creature, and the only way to escape is to die. He then began to introduce the related weaknesses, habits, and various abilities of the ice giant lizard. Garen listened carefully, and the lesson soon ended. Then take a break, go back to your own place to sleep, and continue class the next day. Garen's residence was a cave at the foot of a snow-capped mountain with Saer and the others. It was originally a bear's cave. It had been desolate for a long time. Apparently, it was scared away by the migrating Baelong clan. Because the temperature at the foot of the mountain is very high, more than 20 degrees Celsius, which is very uncomfortable for Baelong's habit of washing off the cold, and it is not safe enough, so there are no dragons living here, only orphan dragons like Garen and the others. I chose this place because I really had no place to live. In this way, after classes and breaks, the peaceful time passed quickly for a month. Garlean accumulated some more attribute points. It was time to go on a mission, and he planned to add all the attribute points he had accumulated before leaving. A dragon was lying deep in the cave. Garen began to carefully observe his own attributes alone. Longwei had initially mastered the basics. Attribute points can actually increase the level of Longwei. However, there is still no rush on this point. After all, this thing requires it takes a long time to accumulate. It grows too much all at once and is too eye-catching. It can easily attract the attention of those with powerful spellcasting abilities. If it is discovered that one's soul is abnormal, it will really be over. It cannot be added to skills, so naturally it can only be added to attributes. It is very cost-effective to use attribute points to improve abilities in the early stage. It just so happened that today, SASI went to the Alpha class to exchange mission information with several other young dragons, and they also needed to go together. Sa-san went hunting first and was already on his way. There is only 1 gallon in the cave, and we will go hunting the ice monitor together tomorrow. With strong physique and strength, it can resist or even be immune to many spells, and its speed can avoid many high-speed dangerous spells, and can even avoid the spellcaster's lock, so that even if it has high-level spells, it cannot hurt itself. And intelligence it will increase my speed in learning arcane magic, even though I haven't officially started learning meditation yet. It's all useful. Garen hesitated for a moment, and finally decided to improve his physical fitness first, rather than his intelligence. The learning of spells cannot be used to build combat power in a short time, especially for a race like the Dragon Clan, which is physically powerful. Then let's distribute the strength, speed, and constitution evenly first. When it was just born, it was a period of rapid development that any young dragon would have. However, it only lasted for 2 months. Now that it has stabilized, it is impossible for the situation to happen again. I am now after about 2 months of accumulation, I have 5 attribute points. Since I have to do a task, the ice giant lizard is not fast, but it is powerful, so I will add strength first. The faster the hunting mission is completed, the better, and the more rewards will be obtained. Moreover, Garen himself also plans to breed some black-toothed wolves. Otherwise, it would be too dangerous to rely entirely on hunting nearby. Sir and the others may be accidentally killed. Humans are caught and killed. Breeding can be placed within a circle around the entrance of your cave. As for the farmed wolf cubs, we'll see when the time comes. If that doesn't work, they can be used to exchange for many things. For example, books, arcane books. Garen's learning speed is much faster than that of other young dragons. Many times he has to follow everyone in class, which is simply a waste of talent and time. After confirming the plan, Garen looked at his status bar. Saw Strength 16, Agility 15, Constitution 11, Intelligence 17, Potential 527%, Soul Limit 170. Without hesitation, he all added attribute points to strength. The strength suddenly increased from 16 to 21. He could clearly hear the sound of his muscles tightening and contracting. The sound sounded like a spring, but more like a steel bar. He felt that his limbs and chest muscles were thicker and heavier, which was an obvious increase in muscle density. He suddenly waved his claws, and the ground in the cave suddenly exploded, revealing a clear dragon claw mark, which was more than 10 centimeters deep. This was Garen's casual swing. The strength of an adult white dragon is at least between 30 and 40. I'm still far away. Garen sighed softly and relaxed his tense muscles. He has such power with only 21 points of strength now, not to mention the more than 20 points of strength of the adult white dragons, and they are not just about strength. According to Garen's judgment, apart from intelligence, the other 3 of the adult white dragons have all indicators are at least between 30 and 40. This is terrifying. Even if he has 30 points of strength now, he can hardly break the defense of an adult white dragon, let alone its terrifying healing ability. This is still the premise that the opponent stands and lets him fight, let alone any advanced talent spells and the like. If he is hit and his physique is not strong enough, it will kill him in one stroke. Garen compared it carefully and knew that he was still far from an adult white dragon. However, it will take at least 50 years for a young dragon to reach adulthood. In other words, within 50 years, in addition to natural growth, I will also have my own attribute points that can be additionally enhanced. It should take less than 50 years to surpass the adult white dragon. Stage Garen thought in his mind. After adding his attribute points, he stood up and walked out of the cave. The outside of the cave is covered with white frost, which is just like a fan shape, freezing a large area of the cave entrance. This is the temperature drop naturally caused by their white dragon living in the cave. There are still large green forests on the periphery. Because of the faint dragon power and the pressure of the white dragon clan, there are no dangerous creatures of higher levels to be seen here, only some completely harmless little things running around. Hey, a young dragon flew over from a distance and shouted towards Garen. Garen, it's time to leave. It was Leona. Her figure was slender and graceful, and her scales were glossier and cleaner than those of ordinary white dragons. She looked like a white crystal dragon, extremely beautiful. But after Leona flew a certain distance, two more young dragons followed her. It is a male dragon with two obvious heads. Leona landed in front of Garen a few times and folded her wings. I'm going hunting. This is my first time hunting. Are you afraid? She shouted in novelty. What's there to be afraid of? Garen didn't like talking to this little kid, but the more he acted like this, the more Leona liked talking to him. According to her, Beilong should be cold. Moreover, she has a very strong intuition. She seems to have inherited part of the Elder's magic talent. She can vaguely sense that Garen is obviously much stronger than other young dragons. Strong people will always be treated differently. Aren't you afraid? The ice giant lizard has the talent of ice armor, Leona said loudly. They are much more powerful than us, and it would be really dangerous if they were hit. Can they fly? Garen turned and walked towards the cave. No. Then what are you worried about? We can fly, Garen said casually. But isn't this impossible? How can we hunt? Leona was puzzled. He is just a coward. The two young dragons flying from behind also landed on the ground, and one of them said loudly, Listen Leona, if it were me, I could blow away the ice giant lizard in one breath. It beats its own chest. You. Let's forget it, Polly is pretty much the same. Leona looked at the other more well-proportioned baby dragon. The young dragon named Polly looked at Garen calmly, obviously dissatisfied with him being so rude. Is this the partner you must work with? Although I don't know if he can fight, this attitude makes everyone uncomfortable. Garen is just naturally cold, not as unfriendly as you think. Leona argued. Let's form a team. If the three of us strictly follow the tactics, we will definitely be able to successfully hunt the ice giant lizard. I have already thought out all the steps. In fact, it doesn't matter if I want him or not, Polly said lightly. He is also a direct bloodline of the elder dragon, and there are few young dragons in the clan who dare to be so rude to him. This made him a little dissatisfied. He still likes Leona quite a lot. Although her elder is a bit weak, she should be able to produce excellent blood simply as a spouse to produce offspring. Leona, I don't like you to be too close to that galleon, Polly whispered. But Polly, Garen is my partner and my friend. Leona became dissatisfied. Polly was growing dissatisfied, but did not show it. That's it. He can join, but the spoils will be distributed based on his performance. If he performs too poorly, don't blame me for not giving him anything. Great, Leona suddenly became happy again. Garen was a little speechless in the cave, but he had heard of Polly, who was a few years older than him, and he should have been using the dragon's power to exercise his body. Now it seems that he is obviously attracted to Leona. Not all the baby dragons in the baby dragon breeding center are born in a batch. Garen and the others are considered the latest and smallest among them. The largest group was Polly's group, and they all stayed for at least a few years. He originally didn't want to talk to these little brats, but if he went hunting alone, he would hunt too much and might be too conspicuous. It would be good to have this team to cover him. Leona is relatively simple, and the superiors arranged for him and Leona to together. It's obviously a bit interesting. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1253. His strong body and average quality were noticed when he was testing his level. This is Garen's ability to be taken seriously but not too seriously. Maybe I should be careful to protect Leona, he thought this way. A whistling sound came from outside the cave. Garen lay down alone inside and began to practice the concentration of dragon power. This is a long process, but what the dragon clan lacks most is time. The current average strength of a young dragon is around 18 points, and Garen's strength is far superior to that of an average young dragon, so there is no need to worry about not being able to complete the task. In the cave, after waiting for a while, Leona and the others had obviously discussed it outside. Only then did he enter the cave. Garen, Garen, Leona shouted and flew in. We have discussed it? How about you being one of the two main attackers? Do you agree? Main attacker, Garen stood up. I don't care, so what do you do? Polly spoke immediately. Leona and I both have special enchanted necklaces that can release long-range attack spells. Don't worry, we won't let you down. Although he was dissatisfied with Garen and went back to the cave alone without paying attention to him, he still maintained his attitude on the surface. Etiquette, at least ensure your demeanor in front of Leona. What attack spell? Garen looked slightly surprised. Suddenly, Polly raised his paw proudly and pointed at the necklace on his chest. It was a string of white pearl necklaces, with a rare azure gem hanging underneath, which was extremely bright and crystal clear. Did you see it? The Eye of the Sky is a good thing my father prepared for me. It can release the 5th level dragon fire spell 3 times a day. Wow, so powerful. My ring can only use the dragon rain technique 3 times a day. Garen did not respond, but Leona beside him became extremely excited. Level 5 spells, 3 times a day, are enough to ensure safety, and there are probably other similar spells and equipment. This is an enchanted equipment that can only be made by spellcasters and mages. It requires solidification of spells, which consumes very expensive materials and a lot of mental power and energy, in order to contact the magic network to release and solidify a spell. These two young dragons can have 2 pieces of 5th level enchanted equipment. It's already pretty good. This is something that requires a 6th level mage spellcaster to spend a lot of energy to make. One curing will cause the mage to lose at least 1 level of spellcasting. In other words, if a 6th level spellcaster has reached the edge of promotion, once this kind of equipment is cured, fell down in an instant, and returned to the state when he just entered level 6. This is a loss of mental strength. It's really a big investment, Garen knew clearly. The White Dragon clan is now in great decline. Originally, there were not many spellcasters. There were only 5 or 6 old dragons with spellcasters above level 5. Now they took out 2 of them at once. The solidified equipment is most likely a collection stolen from humans. With these 2 pieces of equipment, we don't have to be afraid of anything. Polly has always been a young dragon. After all, no matter how mature he is, there is a limit. It is normal to not be able to resist showing off his powerful trump card. After confirming that they had their own protective capabilities, Garen finally made up his mind to join this team. Or it should be the other way around. After all, because Leona is on the same team as him, they have to act together, and the two dragons of Polly took the initiative to come over and join. A group of dragons were about to check what they were carrying. There was no space dimension bag. The White Dragon clan had snatched things from the human race, but they couldn't use them because they didn't have human mental power. Once they were forcibly opened, they would lead to space. The equipment completely collapsed and failed. And the White Dragons themselves have no craftsmen to make this thing. After checking the map, various props, and things for daily use, 4 young dragons formed a team and flew towards the valley where the ice monitor lizard was located on the map. They chose the night time, taking advantage of the darkness and finding no creatures. The distance between the ice giant lizard and the White Dragon clan was a bit far, and they had to cross a relatively long distance. Although there were frequent white dragons clearing the road, there was still a gap. There will be some earth dragons who are accustomed to the power of dragons running around. Many of these earth dragons have low intelligence and are likely to attack young dragons passing by. At night, covered by the purple moonlight in the black night sky, Leona and her party flew straight towards the place indicated on the map. Below is a large rolling black mountain forest, and occasionally you can hear the deep sound of giant beasts sleeping soundly, one after another. Garen flew in the middle of the team, and in front was the strong young dragon who followed Polly, a little guy named Zest. This kid boasted a lot and liked to listen to Polly in everything. Leona flew behind him, side by side with Polly. But his eyes kept wandering to Garen. Garen's body is strong, smoother, more symmetrical, and stronger than ordinary baby dragons, and looks very powerful and beautiful. No wonder Leona's eyes are so fiery. Polly and Leona on the side spoke several times, but to no avail, and could not stop her naked gaze at all. He had no choice but to give up, but the way he looked at Garen became more and more unhappy. Garen was too lazy to pay attention to these little brats, but was looking down at the vast terrain below. The dark mountains are constantly rising and falling, and occasionally you can see a little bit of bright white light swaying and floating, and you don't know what it is. From time to time, long wolf howls can be heard in the distance. The group of dragons flew forward for more than half an hour, and soon they saw that on a higher mountain in front, there was a faint whirlpool-like phosphorescence flickering. The green phosphorescence formed a large vortex, slowly rising on the mountain. It rotates sideways, giving people a dreamlike beauty under the illumination of the purple moon. "What is that?" Zest, who was flying at the front, asked in a low voice. "It's the Thunder Snake clan," Polly answered immediately. "The Razor clan? I heard my grandpa talk about it." Leona also nodded. "They are a rare species of creatures that have come to live with us. There used to be manticores, but unfortunately they all ran away. Now there is only one left. Razor. There won't be any trouble if we fly there, right?" Garen was concerned about other things. "No, although the attachment relationship has become weaker in recent years, they should not take the initiative to attack us," Polly said clearly. It was obviously imitating the posture of an adult dragon. Flying past the Razor clan, Garen carefully observed the green phosphorescent vortex. There were a large number of moth-like insects shining inside, and the whole body was filled with a faint green fluorescence. Obviously, this phosphorescent vortex was like these. Made by green moths. "Look, that's Bieber and the others." Leona suddenly pointed in the distance and shouted loudly. "Bieber? Where is he? He must look good when he comes out this time." When he heard the name, Polly, who had always pretended to be calm, immediately became furious. He looked fiercely in the direction Leona pointed. "Sure enough, I saw a small group of young dragons flying over the edge of Thunder Snake Mountain. The leader of those young dragons is a guy named Bieber. He often fights with Polly. Both of them are of the blood of elders. No one is afraid of the other, but overall, Polly is still weaker. The number of times he has been beaten. Majority. Bieber has a congenital black birthmark patch on his right wing, and because of his strong body shape, he is easy to identify. He obviously also discovered Polly and his party here. He grinned at this side from a distance, somewhat maliciously. This guy. He's provoking. Polly suddenly became angry and tried to rush over. But he was immediately hugged tightly by Sast. No, Polly. The swelling in your butt has just subsided, you can't get injured again. If you get injured now, we will be delayed in our mission. Sast obviously didn't know what it meant to save face for Polly. Sast. When will I be unable to defeat that bastard? Polly's face suddenly turned red, and Garen knew for the first time what it was like for Baelong to blush. The day before yesterday, you were singled out by Bieber and beaten into a pig's head. I saw it with my own eyes. I'm doing this for your own good. Sast hugged him tightly and refused to let go, with a loyal look on his face. Oh. Seeing Leona's surprised and slightly contemptuous eyes, Polly wanted to find a crack in the ground and crawl in. If Sast hadn't been really strong, he would never have brought such a fool to partner with him. But it's too late to regret now. Don't get beaten again. Polly, sister shouted. Even Bieber and other dragons in the distance heard it and couldn't help laughing. Leona couldn't help but laugh. Garen shook his head speechlessly. Seeing Polly's red dragon face, he knew that his image in Leona's heart was completely ruined. Meeting this kind of partner was something he asked for. Polly looked up to the sky and roared, watching Bieber and the other dragons flying away with laughter. He himself was not strong enough to break away from Sast, so he could only roar in grief and anger. Let's go, stop yelling, Garen urged. Yeah, if anything happens, let's go to the hunting area and settle things with them, Leona couldn't help but encourage Polly. After a group of dragons encountered an incident, Polly finally calmed down and gave sister a good lesson before continuing to fly toward the hunting area listlessly. Halfway down, I passed a small gray human tent area, with many human warriors coming in and out from time to time. Occasionally, I could see a mage coming out of the tent. Those are the alliance masters of the Dalata Empire. They have joined forces with our White Dragon clan to form a warrior alliance. Polly explained that because Garen didn't laugh at him just now, his view of Garen has changed a lot now. Alliance Master? What kind of alliance method? Garen asked. It is said that through the Dragon Oath spell, they pay the reward, and we respond to the call to help. The call is unique. However, this is only suitable for adult white dragons, and we are not qualified now. Polly shook his head. Is it a summoning spell? I heard that summoning spells can summon gates to other worlds and capture powerful creatures from different dimensions and space to enslave and fight. Is that true? Garen has no relevant books and information, but it is vaguely in his inherited memory. Such a little content. That's right, my grandfather has this kind of spell in his library, but it's just a mutilated version. Because it's of no use to us white dragons, no one pays attention to it. Many books were accidentally damaged during maintenance and care, Leona said regretfully. Why, Garen, you want to learn summoning spells? That kind of thing is not as good as us directly enslaving the earth dragons and dragon beasts under our command. The creatures we can summon that can compare to the dragon beasts must be at least level 5 or 6. The summoning spell has no effect. That's true, Garen nodded understandingly. In fact, he just wanted to try to see if he could open the door to his original universe and space. But thinking about the powerful and terrifying existences when he traveled to this world, he knew in his heart that it was impossible. It is indeed a bit whimsical for a mere high-level spell to reach such a height. My grandfather sent 2 dragon guards to help Dalata protect the mage tower. It should be possible to exchange for complete spell information, but it will probably be very expensive. If you want, you can contact the 2 dragon guards, Leona whispered. Yes, I understand, thank you. Garen kept it in mind. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1254. When a group of dragons crossed the human camp below from above, There were people below who raised their heads and looked around, but did not show panic. They were obviously used to it. The hunting time limit for the young dragons is 1 month. Apparently many young dragons have passed by here these days. Continuing to fly forward, a large white snow peak soon appeared in the distance. Above was the white snow, and below was a large green and yellow mountain. The entire snow peak was extremely pure, giving people a simple and clean taste. At this time, the sun gradually emerged from the east, illuminating most of the sky, and the halo of the purple moon was gradually covered up. Leona and her group of young dragons formed a square formation and flew straight towards the snowy peak. The early morning sunlight reflected on them, giving them a faint golden red sheen. A group of giant geese passed below them at high speed. These geese were second-level creatures. They seemed to feel the breath of the young dragons, and they immediately accelerated their speed and fled quickly. In the wild, except for earth dragons, dragon beasts, and a few high-level creatures, most other creatures are no match for the young dragons. This is the hunting area. It's already the Fire Sun Mountain range. Everyone, be careful. It's not just us. There may be high-level monsters coming to hunt nearby, Polly warned loudly. Garen flew in the middle of the team, lowered his head and looked down, and could see in the distance among some woods, there were scattered little people moving slowly, as if they were staggering. As a flying creature, Beilong naturally has very strong eyesight. He quickly contracted his pupils and stared down. He suddenly discovered that these scattered black dots in the darkness of the forest were actually human beings walking slowly. They wore tattered clothes, had dull faces, and dark purple skin. They obviously did not look like living people, and they all had one thing in common. That is their abdomen. All the organs are clearly exposed, and people can see the black intestines and other internal organs coiled inside, wrapped in a transparent film. That's a walking corpse, a monster naturally produced by the poisonous gas and the power of death. Here Polly leaned closer to explain in a low voice. Walking zombie. Garen glanced at him. This guy seemed to want to get close to him. Yes, you can't kill them all. They die quickly and live again. There are too many corpses in the sea of trees, which are preserved and fossilized by the poisonous mist. They don't rot at all. Polly nodded. After speaking, he turned back and looked at Leona. It seems you don't like Leona, he asked in a small voice. Why should I like her? Garen asked. This kid is quite smart, but now he can see that he doesn't like Leona. Didn't he show it clearly enough? Polly suddenly felt very good. Pat Garen on the shoulder. If you need any help, you can come to me. Ors asked. Just don't bother me, Garen replied casually. Polly's next words were immediately stuck in his mouth, and his face started to turn red again. Garen didn't care whether he had any face or not. The adult dragons of the White Dragon clan are all selfish. It won't be long before the young dragons will be kicked out of the nest and become independent. They are relatively indifferent to emotions and value strength. Adult white dragons cannot interfere with the affairs of the young dragon breeding center. All that is needed is for them to be eliminated naturally. So it didn't matter to him whether he dealt with Polly or not. Okay. Okay, Polly swallowed hard. The snow peak ahead is the hunting area. Sast and you will attack in a while. Is that okay? Leona and I will attack from a distance. Okay, Garen said, no problem. He needed to observe the ice lizard first anyway. A group of young dragons quickly flew into the Swifeng Mountains, where densely packed powerful auras of various sizes continued to spread, some rising into the sky, extremely arrogant. Looking from a distance, you can easily see more than a dozen ice monitor lizards of different sizes walking around in the ice and snow. This creature has very low intelligence, but possesses strong physical and mental strength, and its flesh also has a strong effect on increasing fertility. The ice monitor has 4 thick legs and is gray-black all over, but is covered with a layer of snow powder and white ash. It looks like an enlarged version of a 4-legged snake, dragging a long tail. The only difference between them and the four-legged snakes is that there is a dark blue indentation between their foreheads and eyebrows. The smallest of these ice monitor lizards are as tall as an adult, and the body length of 5 to 6 meters to 7 to 8 meters is normal. The largest one, even Galen, saw at a glance a super monitor lizard that was 15 meters long. This monitor lizard was dark green and covered with rough scales. Its head was surrounded by a circle of black-green fins. The arrogant and domineering atmosphere is what they release. The baby dragon's eyesight is far greater than that of the ice giant lizard, so they can see each other, but the other party cannot see them. The ice monitor's vision is only more than 10 meters, and it's still very blurry. They detect enemies through smell. So be careful. Polly had prepared all the information. I'll go up and test it first. Without waiting for his instructions, Sast rushed down and aimed at the smallest monitor lizard. As soon as it approached the range of less than 20 meters, the monitor lizard was prepared. It flicked its gray-black tail hard and hit Sast. Sast did not flinch. He also used strength as his strength, and without any dodge, he lowered his head and slammed into it. Bang! A piece of snow powder was flying everywhere on the snow, and Sast actually resisted the giant lizard's tail flick. This is a small monitor lizard that is only 5 meters long and as tall as a person, but it is still a big guy for young dragons. Although the ice monitor lizard is not very intelligent, it is really big, compared to even some dragon clans are not willing to give in too much. Sast tested the opponent's upper limit of strength, and immediately relaxed, and started to struggle with the giant lizard. His claws were trying hard to grab the monitor lizard's neck, but the monitor lizard's tongue was tightly wrapped around his neck, preventing it from moving forward at all. The two rolled around in the snow. Leona and Polly couldn't help but hide their faces and remain speechless. I don't know where I have forgotten everything I learned in the combat class, Polly said helplessly. Garen stood aside and watched for a while. Sast seemed to be in no danger. This little monitor lizard was obviously hunting alone, so it was not in great danger. The strength is about the same as that of Sast, both around 19 points. Galen, come up and help, Polly shouted. Garen had no choice but to go up and aim at the vital part of the giant lizard's neck, with a sudden claw. Bang! The giant lizard's neck bone was broken with precision, without wasting even a trace of extra strength. He was killed directly by Garen. With the same strength, the difference in combat effectiveness between a trained person and an untrained person is actually very large. Garen and Sast are both level 4 drakes, and both possess the same abilities as drakes, but Garen is much better than Sast. Polly and Leona also felt that Garen's claw was very beautiful. But I couldn't see anything specific. I just thought that with Sast entangled with the giant lizard, Garen could resolve the battle at once. They can certainly do it by themselves, but they don't think it's that powerful. After finishing off a giant lizard, Sast emerged from under the giant lizard's belly panting. Why didn't you come earlier? It scared me to death. This guy's tongue is harder than the Elder's dragon thorn. That's me. If I were another dragon, I would be entangled to death by him immediately, Sast said. After just a few words, I started to brag again. Garen shrugged, too lazy to say more. Okay, don't delay, dig out the eyes and crystal cores quickly. The smell of blood will quickly attract other creatures. Polly looked knowledgeable. As a veteran student of the breeding center, he had naturally hunted more than once. The four-headed dragon dug something and left quickly. Not long after, he heard a strange croaking sound behind him, as if some kind of weird creature had discovered the body. Leona put the eyeballs and crystal cores in a small oval jar she brought. This is a preservation pot that can guarantee that it will not deteriorate in a short period of time. It can maintain its freshness for 2 months. It is just right for the task. Next, they encountered another monitor lizard. This one was bigger than the one before, but not much bigger. Still haven't broken through level 4. Compared with the giant lizard just now, this one was obviously much more alert. When they met directly, it released the ice armor and covered itself. A large piece of white translucent armor suddenly formed, protecting the front half of its body, leaving only the rear half unprotected. However, the giant lizard turned very quickly, and it was obviously unlikely that it would give Garen and other dragons a chance to attack its tail. Without saying a word, Sast rushed forward and continued to resist. Since he had agreed, Garen also rushed forward. This time, the giant lizard was much more powerful than the previous one, and the two dragons were hit hard by the giant lizard. Garen moved out of the way, but Sast could not completely dodge and was rubbed against his wings, causing a gash between his scales. "Carry it together," Garen said loudly. He did not show his power of 21 points, but only showed the power of 19 points, which is the same level as Sast. So as not to attract attention. Good. The two dragons had just made an appointment when the giant lizard retracted its tail and threw it out again. Amidst the muffled whistling of the wind, the tail fanned out a clear twisting airflow and drew it towards the two dragons. Sast thrust forward with all his strength, and Garen also carried forward with two claws. Bang! Blocked firmly. The power of the two dragons was greater than that of the giant lizard. The giant lizard roared, lowered its head and opened its mouth. A red tongue-tied sister, and for the third time it swung its tail towards Garen. Dragon fire technique. At this moment, Leona shouted loudly from behind. A dragon-shaped flame burst out from her claws, followed by countless red sparks flying down, and quickly hit the tail of the giant lizard. Apparently Leona didn't know when she and Polly got behind the giant lizard. This is what they call tactics. The giant lizard's ice armor can only protect the upper body, but cannot protect the back half. It is much easier to use a powerful one to attract attention, and then the other dragons attack from behind.